Snake? Snake? Snake! Welcome to 2-Bit Gaming. Today's topic, Bleemcast, Metal Gear Solid. In previous episodes, I've talked about Bleemcast for Gran Turismo 2 and Tekken 3. Now it's time for my personal favorite, Bleemcast for Metal Gear Solid. Now, when Metal Gear Solid came out, I was blown away. Never had a game been so movie-like, and the stealthy gameplay was so fresh. I still consider it the best in the series, but this is not a review of Metal Gear Solid. I'll mostly be talking about how well the emulator enhances the game for play on Dreamcast. You first place the software in your Dreamcast and turn the system on. Once booted, you'll see a menu screen with a nice graphic. The Dreamcast has a different set of buttons. It's not ideal, but it works well enough once you're used to it. Bug Alert details a few graphical glitches. If you can't read that, it says, a sudden overwhelming urge to sue everyone you know in an evil quest for world domination. I'll get into that later. Once you're done setting things up, open the system. Swap the boot disk for the game disk, and from here on out your Dreamcast will act as if it's an upgraded PlayStation. The Rumble Pack works, and so will the controller port trick used to defeat Psycho Mantis. It's the same game, and Bleem does a good job making sure you can play it in its entirety. With a glitch or two, that is. Just like the other Bleem discs, the first thing you'll notice is the game now runs in 640 by 480, double the resolution of the PlayStations. The increase in resolution makes a huge difference, and because the game looks so good on the PlayStation, it upscales nicely on the Dreamcast. Even the PS2's backwards compatibility didn't do that. Speaking of the PlayStation 2's backwards compatibility, you can turn on texture smoothing. It looks better than standard, but it doesn't up the resolution or apply any full-screen anti-aliasing. Objects have a jagged appearance throughout the game. I've also heard of texture flickering and frame rate issues. It's kind of funny that a software emulator like Bleem can do a better job than the PlayStation on a chip hardware of the PS2. Bleem's 640 by 480 resolution is a real testament to the Bleem programmers and to the Dreamcast.
That's the second time I've been able to sneak up on the legendary Solid Snake.
You're Meryl? There's no way you could pass for a man for long.
What do you mean? Hey, men aren't allowed in here.
I had no idea you were so feminine.
This is no time to try and hit on me, Snake. Besides, it's a waste of time. When I joined up, they gave me psychotherapy. So there's something you like about me, huh?
Yeah, you've got a great butt.
Oh, I see. First it's my eyes, now it's my butt. What's next?
On the battlefield, you never think about what's next.
So, Snake, how are the negotiations going?
No, I'm not.
No progress.
What? Are you checking
So
out
it's all up
Meryl?
to you, huh?
No.
Somebody's gotta stop them from launching a nuclear missile.
Pervert.
Metal Gear. Pervert. You idiot!
I really should mention that the PC got a port of Metal Gear Solid, with all the same enhancements, but if you're like me, your PC is probably a little too new to run it anymore. Then there's the GameCube remake, Twin Snakes. It looks gorgeous, but it's not exactly the same game. If you want to play the original, while sitting in the dark, on your couch, then the Dreamcast, glitches and all, is a little better than playing it on PS2. The only downside of the upped resolution is unfortunately in character faces. The pixelated PlayStation original looked fine with shadows representing eyes, and head nods instead of animated mouths. Much like the original, you get used to it, but it's much more apparent here during the many in-game cinematics. Like the other Bleemcast games, you'll also notice the anti-aliasing, which smooths the polygon edges and textures. Instead of jagged edges, you get an all-around smoother looking game. The increased resolution uncovers a lot of polygon tearing and perspective correction errors that were lost in the PlayStation original's pixelization. But if you're familiar with the rendering quality of the PlayStation, these glitches aren't a deal breaker. The worst graphical glitch I've seen comes during the ending cinema. After escaping the facility, Snake and Meryl find themselves outside in the cold Alaskan wilderness. It looks fine until you notice the seams in the sky. It must have been a rendering issue that they couldn't resolve, but it's very distracting during an emotional epilogue. Does it ruin it? No, but it's definitely not ideal. So, how does Bleemcast Metal Gear Solid stack up against a similar Dreamcast game? Compared to Headhunter, gameplay-wise, it's the only comparable Dreamcast game. Metal Gear Solid hasn't aged all that well. If I had to choose the better overall game, Metal Gear Solid edges out the still excellent Headhunter. Not surprisingly, it just doesn't look as nice. Faceless characters and low-quality textures are no match for Headhunter's graphical prowess. However, even with the outdated graphics, this Bleemcast release makes it one of the best experiences on the Dreamcast. So, after releasing just 3 discs, Bleem went bankrupt and closed. You see, Sony hated the idea that their games were being played on anything but PlayStation brand hardware. Again and again, Sony sued and lost court case after court case. Bleem hadn't done anything illegal, but the American civil court system allows you to sue for anything. And even if it gets thrown out, it costs both sides money. Sony knew they could afford to keep suing, but Bleem couldn't afford to keep defending. It basically went like this.
I don't know, Sony. Bleem didn't really break any laws.
But Judge, Bleem is a poopy face! Oh, come on, Judge. Look at them. Poopy faces!
Well, that's not exactly against the law now, is it?
Poopy faces!
How much is this costing us again?
You don't want to know.
In the end, Bleem won in court, but lost their company to court fees. It was a sad day for a company with a promising product, and a sad day for Dreamcast owners who could have used a few more titles during the dark days to come. Luckily for us, not so good for the former Bleem owners, a beta was leaked of the original Bleemcast designed to play nearly all PlayStation games. You can download it from various shady peer-to-peer websites. It's only about 30% done. Not all games run full speed, or at all. It's full of glitches and won't play FMVs or allow for saves. Even still, it can be fun to see some of your favorite PlayStation games in a higher resolution, even just for the novelty of it. I won't mention any of the illegal ISO solutions, so please don't ask. Now it's time for Kane's 2 Bits! 1. Of the 3 Bleemcast releases, Metal Gear Solid is both the most impressive and glitchy. On one hand, you have the classic Metal Gear Solid looking better than ever, and on the other hand, well, when a glitch shows up, it's an eyesore you can't help but be distracted by. Now, with that said, Metal Gear Solid is a great game no matter what hardware you play it on. 2. I still don't understand why Sony decided to crush Bleem. They could have continued in silence to receive all the license money and sales from games sold to Dreamcast owners. Sony should have bought Bleem and tasked them with emulating PlayStation on as many platforms as possible. The more sales, the better, and with the PS2 released, why would they care if those games were played on PlayStation, PC, GameCube, Dreamcast, or whatever? That's my 2 bits. As always, I'm your humble 2-bit gamer. Thanks for watching.
What? What is it? What are you doing? We've got to get a move on. What are you staring at? Don't stare at me like that.
No!
Pervert.
Okay, one more time.
Still a Metal Gear.